So good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm Miles, and I live here, and I teach meditation, among other things. And Brian and Josephine asked me to come and talk to you about my particular practice. So that's what I'll start out doing, and then I'll give you some instruction how to do my practice, which is very simple. And then we'll sit for a little bit, and then I'll leave some time at the end to talk about your experience. So, are we good with the camera? Great. So, I know you've been as part of your training, you've learned different meditation practices. So, what I'll do is present the one that I come from, and I'll tell you a little bit about where it originates. And throughout this talk, if you have questions, just speak up. So this is meant to be interactive. So my tradition is a Buddhist tradition, and it's often in this country you'll hear it called insight meditation, sometimes called Vipassana meditation, sometimes known as mindfulness practice. They all come from a similar basis, and there's three main types of Buddhism. The two most common ones is Tibetan Buddhism, which is very colorful, and everyone knows about Tibetan Buddhism at least through the Dalai Lama. He's the head of that lineage. And then there's Zen Buddhism, which came to this country a long time ago, and usually Tibetan Buddhism obviously is from Tibet, and the Zen practice is usually associated with Japan, but it's also practiced in Korea, parts of China, so it's kind of the Far East. And then there's a third tradition which we don't hear about as much called the Theravada tradition, and that's I was trained in Sri Lanka in a Buddhist monastery there. It's also practiced in Thailand, Burma, some parts of India, and Laos, Cambodia, and then kind of into Vietnam. So it's known as the Southern or the Southeast Buddhist tradition, and it's kind of a quieter, simpler tradition. So it doesn't have as much ceremony. There's very little ceremony. It doesn't have a lot of ritual, and it doesn't have a lot of flashiness. It's a very, very simple tradition. And I'm trying to think who you might know. Thich Nhat Hanh comes from that tradition, so he's probably the most well-known. In this country, there's centers usually known as insight meditation centers. There's a big one in Barre, Massachusetts that some of you might have heard of, and that's the tradition that I practice is practiced there as well. And then there's another teacher named Goenka who started the Vipassana centers that a lot of you might have heard of, and it's a very formulated 10-day retreat, and that comes from this tradition, but the teacher Goenka, who's an Indian man, put his own spin on it and kind of made, his idea was to really make it available to people in the West. And has anybody here done a 10-day Goenka retreat, Vipassana retreat? They're really intense. It's like meditation boot camp. So the way that I teach and the insight meditation teachers is a little less rigorous. So this tradition has a focus on being gentle. There's a form and there's a discipline, but the emphasis is on being soft and kind of gentle on yourself. Whereas the Zen tradition and in some cases the Goenka Vipassana tradition can get kind of tight and rigid. So just raise your hand if you've done any kind of meditation other than your training. Other than what you're doing in your training, and just shout out some traditions so I have an idea what we're...
The same as you're talking about, Vipassana.
Okay, but not the Goenka Vipassana. Okay, yeah.
I've been to Barre, to some retreats there.
Sure, okay. Yeah, yeah.
I have teachers who have done the insight meditation who've taught me.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Insight?
Same,
yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Centering prayer.
Okay, so centering prayer is a Christian tradition. I don't know a lot about it, except I was excited to find out that there was meditation in the Christian tradition. Can you say anything about that?
Well, it's based on a lot of similarities, as I think if you compare all different forms of meditation.
Yeah.
Have the overlays, but it's a, like a one-word mantra.
Yeah.
In fact, Jim was talking about it yesterday.
Okay. Yeah.
We had a talk on meditation yesterday on the
Yeah.
way up. So it's just coming back to whatever one word.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a Christian word. It doesn't have to be a Buddhist word.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Anybody else have a different form that you've practiced meditation? So the common ground for all meditation forms is it's simply a practice or process to bring you mentally and physically into the present moment. So we often use, in my tradition, we use a body sensation to come back to bring your attention back to. So where it really differs from the yogic traditions is that in the meditation practice, we're not trying to do anything at all, and that's the challenge of it. Is it's a non-doing. It's a letting go of any willful action, which turns out to be, as simple as it sounds, it turns out to be one of the most difficult things for us to do, because we're wired, we're conditioned to always be practicing something, doing something. So the paradox of meditation practice is that it is a practice, it is a technique, there's a form to it, but the essence of the form is not doing anything. And that's the edge that we play with when we're doing meditation practices. So the basic form is about getting your body where you can let it go. And the reason we don't practice laying down, generally speaking, some meditation traditions might use lying down, but the reason we don't do that in my tradition is that you tend to just go to sleep. When you lay down, or I recommend when you're sitting that you don't lean back on anything so that your spine is self-supporting. And what that does when you're sitting up and your spine is supporting itself is that it energizes you. You have to use a little bit of physical energy just to hold your body up. And the trick is to get your body upright and then totally relax it. So that's the idea. And then we give ourselves a focus, something to bring the attention back to, because if you can manage to let the body go, so all we're doing with the body is relaxing it enough to just let it go and let it essentially take care of itself. And that is challenging, because the body, as you know, is always demanding our attention. It's always saying, feed me, entertain me, make me feel good, do so, this hurts here, change it, move it. The body doesn't like taking care of itself. It doesn't like being left alone. It's like, think of the body like a 2-year-old, and it's always looking for your attention. And so the first, you could call it maybe the first phase of meditation, is getting the body where it can you just let it go. So you're not neglecting the body, you're not ignoring the body, and you're not putting the body through pain intentionally. There's a certain amount of discomfort in sitting still, just mostly because we're not used to it, and the body will have to adjust the knees and the back and so forth. But the point is not to hurt yourself and then endure the pain. That would be missing the point. The point is to get the body in a reasonable position where you can just let it go. And I'll talk about different sitting ways to do that. I brought some props here to show you. But that's the essence of the physical part, is letting the body take care of itself, including letting the body breathe itself. So in my tradition, we use the breath as the focus, but it's different from most of the yogic traditions in that we're not doing anything with the breath. And that becomes a challenge by itself, is to let the body breathe. So just experiment with me for a moment, and you don't have to sit any particular way right now, but I want you to not breathe, but don't hold your breath, and see what happens if you don't do anything. Okay, I'm assuming by now something happened. So what happened?
You breathe? That's what we're getting at.
Yeah. The way I like to say it, and this is just words, is the body breathed, didn't it? I mean, the body needed air. I asked you not to hold your breath, so if you're relaxed into that, then at some point the body just takes air. And what you start to notice is that breathing is involuntary. You don't have to make it happen. And that's a key to this form of meditation, because when you can allow something to happen organically, there's a tremendous, this is a bit of a stretch, but it's a little bit like a sneeze, and it's a little bit like an orgasm. The reason those things are pleasant is because they're involuntary. We don't have to do anything, they just happen. And the breath is actually like that. The thing is that we're so used to controlling everything that we don't often experience the breath as spontaneous and organic and involuntary. We often, got to breathe, and we make ourselves breathe. And often we're breathing up here using our lungs and our chest muscles. And in this practice, what we do is we relax our body enough so that the diaphragm down here can do most of the work of breathing. And as the body breathes by itself and you relax into that, it becomes incredibly pleasant, incredibly sensuous. So a lot of people think of meditation, particularly, if you take it very seriously and you really get into it, as something that's not pleasant, that's not fun. You're supposed to reject sensual pleasure. And it's not at all true. It's really about tuning into subtle, very ordinary sensual pleasures. And if you think about it, taking a breath is one of the most pleasant experiences that we have. Think about if we were in this room and there was no air and we couldn't breathe. First of all, we wouldn't last very long. We'd last, I don't know what maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's not, you can't go very long without breathing. Your body will die. And secondly, we'd be so hungry for air. And if we got air, we ran out of here and got air. That first breath would be the most incredibly beautiful, delicious thing that we ever experienced. So part of the meditation practice is to treat each breath like that. Like it's your first breath. And if you can just feel that moment, and what I had you do a moment ago gives you a taste of it, where the thing you want more than anything else is air, and then the body just breathes. And it's luscious, it's beautiful, it's very simple and very pleasant. And when you can start to let an ordinary experience like that be pleasurable, it changes your whole outlook on life. So instead of being driven by the way we normally act, is that we're looking for some big event in our life to make us happy. We're looking for that ice cream cone. We're looking for the movie we're going to watch tonight. We're looking for that sensual touch from our partner. We're constantly looking for more and bigger and better sensual experiences. And if you can let a breath fill that need, your life just becomes full and rich every moment. There's nothing, and it's not a game. It's not like you're tricking yourself. The breath actually is very, very beautiful and pleasant. It's just that we overlook it because it's so ordinary. We just skip it. Yeah, I'm breathing. Of course I'm breathing. So you can practice that with food. And I'm guessing that some of you have done that in your practice, that you sit with food and you just smell it, and then you look at it, and then each bite you taste it, and you realize that eating is just luscious. It's incredible. It's beautiful. But how often in our daily life we just rush right over it because we think we don't have time, or it's ordinary. We do it every day, so we're looking for something bigger, something new, something better. So the trick of meditation practice is to just look right here. Instead of looking to the past or to the future, is to look right here to the present and see what's here right now. And as you do that, you begin to see that right now is actually very full. There's nothing wrong with the present moment. There's nothing missing. And that's the essence of sitting practice, is letting yourself be in this moment and be content with this moment. So easy to say, it's not easy to do, because as you sit and as the body settles, If you can get to a place where your body's not demanding your attention and it's okay, which is a lovely place to get to. Then you can start to quiet, you can start to still, because the body's not restless, it's not demanding that you move me, change me, do something to me. Once the body settles like that, then you're dealing with your mind. And the mind is a whole other story. The mind is restless, moving, agitated, looking. It's if you watch your mind for a few moments, you'll see it's going to the past, it's going to the future. The thing about the thinking mind, I'm talking about your conceptual mind, your capacity to formulate ideas, it can't be in the present moment. It doesn't have that capacity. The mind is a beautiful, elegant tool for remembering information, details, planning, imagining what's going to happen in the future. But it's only useful to do that so much of the time. How useful is it to remember every detail of your past? And how useful is it to go over what's going to happen to you in the future over and over and over again, rehearsing it, practicing it? And the problem is the mind doesn't stop. It doesn't know when it's enough. It can't distinguish between, okay, that's enough, just let it go. We don't know how to do that. So our mind essentially is out of control. It'll go over the future again and again and again and again, and it'll go over the past again and again and again and again. And the first thing you notice in meditation practice, once your body settles, is you start to notice what your mind is doing. And if you're paying attention, you see that it's crazy. For all of its activity, it's not actually doing anything. It doesn't function very well. It's not serving us in that sense a lot of the time. And I'm not talking about, throwing out your capacity to think. You have a wonderful capacity to think, and it can and it will serve you well. And meditation practice is not about denying that or ignoring it or throwing it away. It's really about bringing it under some kind of conscious control so that you can choose what you're paying attention to. And when you start meditating, the first thing you'll notice is that you don't have that choice. The mind just does what it does, and it's out of your control. And in our Western culture, we don't really have any kind of a concept of how to train the mind in that sense. Our mind training concept is education. And we're all educated, what I call overeducated. And education in our culture means you cram as much information as you can into your brain, and then you regurgitate it as needed. And if you're like me, you realize you've been through, I don't know how many years of education, at least, I'm counting up in my mind, 16, 18 years of education, and how much of that information do I use now? Very little. So the way we're using our brain, I liken it to, it's like a computer. We use it as storage of information, and we consider being educated or being intelligent how much information you can store. Interesting thing about the computer age is that we don't need to do that anymore because we have a machine, all of us probably own one or several, that can do that way better than we can. The computer sorts, organizes information better than any human brain can ever do. So the beautiful thing about that is that it prompts us to think, well, what can I do? What's my job then? I don't need to use my brain in that way. And so what we're uniquely suited for is awareness, is presence, what the computer can never do. And I don't think there'll ever be a machine that will be able to do it, is to be present, is to be in this moment now, and paying attention, just pure awareness to what's going on here and now. And so that's the art of meditation, it's a practice that prompts us to come back to the present moment. And each different meditation tradition will have a focus point, an object that you come back to. So someone mentioned in the Christian prayer the idea of a mantra, and that's common to many of the Hindu meditation traditions, is coming back to a word or a phrase that you repeat silently in your mind. In the tradition that I teach and come from, we come back to the sensation of the body breathing, just the physical bodily sensation. And in the walking practice, which I saw you doing yesterday, you come back to that feeling of your feet touching the floor. So in my tradition, you're coming back to a physical body sensation. You have to be careful that you're not studying that thing. You're not studying the breath. You're not learning about the breath. There is no such thing as a right breath or a wrong breath. And that's where we need to be careful in this practice, because you can't become an expert meditator. There's no such thing. The only goal is to be in the present moment. And if you're in the present moment or you're not in the present moment, and it doesn't matter. If you're not in the present moment, the thing is to be aware that you're not, that your mind is in the future and the past, and gently bring it back to the present. So that's the practice. And you can't become an expert at it. You just bring your mind back to the present moment. That's all there is to it. So it's simple, but it takes a kind of a, we call it a practice because it takes a kind of steady commitment, a vigilance to do it. So in my tradition, a typical retreat, intensive retreat, would be, say, 7 to 10 days, would be a normal size retreat. You can do it in a couple days. We do weekend retreats here at Sky Meadow, and that's a good way to get a taste of it. You can do it just in a weekly meditation class or sitting on your own. But once you do a longer retreat, you start to break through some of the resistances that we have to this kind of practice, and you enable yourself to go a little deeper into the present moment. And what you find in the present moment, the reason that we're so unable to go there is because it looks empty to us. It looks totally non-interesting, bland, completely flatline. The present moment doesn't offer us anything. Whereas the future has all these tremendous possibilities, and we love going through the past because it's our story, it's our personal drama story, is all there in our past. So we could spend endless amounts of time sifting through the past, imagining our future, but the present, compared to that, looks colorless. It looks blank. There's nothing there. So we don't tend to want to be in the present, and we don't tend to like to be in the present. So part of the practice is just getting ourselves familiar and a little bit comfortable with being in the present moment. And what you start to notice once you really settle into a present moment experience is that it's incredibly peaceful. It's incredibly full, but it's not full of all the things that we're normally looking for. It's not full of experiences. It's not full of ideas. It's not full of sensual excitement. It's not exciting in that sense, but it's incredibly nourishing and rich and satisfying. It's what we're all looking for in all of our experiences that we're planning and hoping for in our future, and all the things that the losses and the regrets and the suffering that we've had in the past is all about that we're missing something and we don't know what it is. So we're looking for it. We're just trying to find it anywhere that we can get it. And when we look to the physical world, to the future, to something that's not here now, we're missing it. Because what we're looking for is this sense of being with ourselves fully present in this moment. That's the one thing that will finally make our lives have this sense of completion. And what's hard for us about that is that it's so incredibly simple. And it's so simple that we just skip it. We just skip right over it. We just can't imagine that there's anything worthwhile there. So we're looking for something big when the thing that we need the most, that sense of just being present in our life, just being okay with this moment, is just right here. So, are there questions?
You said the word, the name of this tradition? I didn't quite hear it.
So it comes from the Theravada Buddhist form. So these are called the Theravada Buddhist. Theravada, spelled Theravadin. Yeah, Therav. I'd have to write it out, but it's a Pali word. So the Buddha taught. Actually, I just learned recently he didn't actually teach in the Pali language, but his teachings were translated into the Pali language, which is similar to Sanskrit. It's on that same vein. And so all these words come from Pali, and how they're actually spelled and how they're actually pronounced is just interpretation, really. But the thing that marks this tradition is the Theravadan Buddhists said, we're just going to do exactly what the Buddha said, and we're not going to add anything to it. So they wear the saffron robes, the monks and nuns, they shave their heads, and their lifestyle is exactly by the book, you could say, exactly what the recorded teachings of the Buddha said. Whereas when it went to Tibet, the reason the Tibetan Buddhist tradition is so incredibly colorful and rich and complex is because it merged with the Bon tradition, which was a very detailed, colorful shamanic tradition that was very alive in Tibet. And when Buddhism came to Tibet, so often when religious teachings move around, there's a battle and then one of them wins and dominates. And in the case of Tibet, they did this beautiful thing, and they just said, we'll just put them together. And they merged them, and out came this incredibly colorful tradition. And then when it got far east to China and Zen, it took its own form there. And it became the Zen, what we know as the Zen form. And the Theravadans said, we're just going to keep it just the way it is, we won't change anything. So that's what it's known for. And it's less colorful. On the outside, there isn't as much form to get into. And in that sense, it's a little bit harder, maybe, to enter. I love it because it's so simple. And I think my belief is a spiritual practice has to be very simple. Otherwise, we get attached to the practice and we get identified with the practice. And if it's very, very simple, there's very little for the ego to grab a hold of there. So.
I really like how you said when you were just explaining it, because that's how I've been feeling about meditation, is just like this blah, flat line. And I was like, it's just not appealing to me. Like, where's the passion, where's the happiness, and how do I find that? So I'm glad you said that, because I was having, I've been thinking about that a lot. But I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's more when you're going to be showing us how to sit. But when I'm sitting for meditation, I'll be in it, and then all of a sudden I'll just start to fall.
Okay.
And I'll catch myself, and then I'll fall. And then it's always kind of, I don't know, I'll just be kind of getting into it, and then I'll fall and kind of wake myself back up. And it's really distracting, and I don't know if that's normal, if that happens to everyone, or if there is something that I can do to not do that, because I think it's kind of inhibiting me of actually getting into it.
Okay, so the question is sitting up straight, starting to meditate, and then feeling the body fall,
Yeah.
and then kind of...
It's like I'm falling asleep, and then I'm...
Okay, are you falling asleep? Is that...
I don't think so. I don't think that I'm falling asleep.
Okay.
It's more I don't know, it's like I'm kind of just, my mind is finally blank, and then all of a sudden it's... Oops.
So you lose your sense of balance?
Yeah.
Okay. The most common explanation for what you're describing is falling asleep, and it's very common to fall asleep when you're sitting. I mean, our reference to sitting still is going to sleep. We don't. The only time that we really just sit and don't do anything, or just put the body in position and don't do anything, is when we're going to sleep. So, and for a lot of us, where our day is so full and we finally sit down, the body just wants to sleep. So drowsiness is common, and one of the reasons that we sit up without supporting our spine is that it's kind of a fail-safe. You start to fall asleep and you're going to fall over,
Yeah.
and then you're going to jerk yourself back up. And I've sat through many sittings where I'm just, going back and forth and forth like this, and it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So an easy remedy to that is go take a nap. I mean, just get some sleep, and then meditate, or meditate in the morning when you've had a good night's sleep, and see if that makes a difference. So that's the first thing I'd check out, is are you indeed falling asleep? And you should know what that feels like so you can tell. If that's not what's going on, what else can happen is that once your body is really settled and you kind of let it take care of itself, you can get very disoriented, which is actually part of the point of meditation practice, is to lose your normal orientation. So for example, you can lose track of time. Mm-hmm. If you've sat at all, you know that some sittings, you can sit for 10 minutes and it feels like an hour, and you can't wait for it to be over. You can sit for half an hour and it feels like 5 minutes. So when you get into meditation, you realize time is just completely relative. It doesn't have an absolute kind of, knowing of time. And space can start to feel that way. So sometimes you can't tell what's up and down.
That's how I feel. I feel actually really disoriented.
Okay.
And like spinning, because it's not that I don't feel like I'm falling asleep.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I don't even know what it feels like to fall asleep. Usually I'm just out.
Yeah.
But it's like this weird line of
Okay.
like,
What are you focusing on? What's your focus of your meditation?
I guess I've just been focusing on my breath.
Okay.
The most. That's just kind of
That gives me a sense that, and I'll give you some specific instructions when I give the instructions. I would recommend that you have a very clear focus, because when things start to go what I call wobbly, that could be mentally, you could have visions, it could be physically. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It's not good or bad. It means that something's happening. You're starting to lose your normal conceptual orientation, and that's considered part of the practice. That's what we're looking for, is to shift our whole perception so that we're not locked into our normal way of thinking and being. It's really helpful to have a steady, very strong point to come back to. So that will help ground you.
Okay.
And that's what I would recommend.
Okay.
Yeah. And anything that happens in meditation practice, the idea is to just be with it, and if it's really uncomfortable, come back to your center. So you have to have a center point to come back to. And it doesn't matter what that center point is, but it's important that you have one. So, did you have a question in the back?
Yes, I have, it may be more like of the mind than a meditation question, but so be it. I'm fascinated with learning and memory, and when you're talking about, how education has us spit back what we memorize. When I went for graduate school, I purposely went to a training program that was experiential, and consciously wanted to unlearn all I had been subjected through from Catholic school. Now I'm kind of swinging back because I'm raising children, and I can see a lot of the value of, and I'm not completely back, I hope I'm finding, you know what I'm saying? I can see a value of, like, memorization of facts. But you're saying this thing about the computer, and it's true, so I just wondered what your thoughts were about that for especially children, because I know for me, learning, memorizing stuff at this point doesn't make that much of a difference in my life. But I'm talking about younger people, benefit of that for their minds developing.
So you're saying, isn't there some benefit to a child as their mind is developing to learn how to remember and memorize?
Well, I know that intuitively, but I'm just wondering, what your thoughts are on that.
Okay.
In terms of, how important it is. Because, I'm subjecting my children to public school. I'm trying so hard at home, to integrate that into learning.
Sure.
So, because I think you're homeschooling.
Yeah, we are.
Right?
Yeah.
And I see that your children are just so amazing. I think that's such a great way to go too. But anyway, just any thoughts on that? I know it's a huge topic.
Sure. I mean, all I can say is that a lot of stress in my life as a child, tremendous amount of stress, came from school. Think about that. We were graded, we were judged, we were evaluated. There was this big thing of, you gotta, I didn't even know what it meant, but you gotta do, I remember 4th grade, you gotta do well so you can get into good college. I had no idea what that meant, but it was important to everybody, so I was, fighting my way through school. And for what? I mean, what happened in my life is that I had a really dramatic change of direction. Fortunately, I was young enough, I was still in college, and I was able to kind of see through the system and get myself to a place that I wanted to be. But the problem I have with memorization is that who decides what's important information? Think about that. Somebody's making those decisions. I don't mean one person, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but whoever's making those decisions, you or the school or somebody, they're deciding of all the information there is in the world, which we know is pretty much infinite. Somebody put down, well, this is what kids need to know. It's pretty arbitrary and it's pretty biased. And I don't think that's a good thing to feed. So what we're doing, for example, is trying to feel what do they, we're not leaving it up to them. They're not in charge of their education, but we're trying to feel what are they naturally inclined to? What are they interested in? And then how can we support and feed that? And it turns out it's not memorizing information, it's knowing how to get access to information. It's knowing how to ask a question, and then what channels do you pursue to find the answer? And sometimes that, nowadays with the internet, it's right there. I remember as a kid it was the encyclopedia, and that was okay, but it was kind of tedious. With the internet, it's like boom, boom, boom. And so you kids got to know how to get information on the internet, how to sift through it, how to tell the good stuff from the bad stuff. That's, I think, the more important training. And then, what about these questions that you can't go to the internet for, like, what's the purpose of life? So then you work with your children on, so how are you going to answer that question? And you can't answer it for them, despite the fact that we would love to be able to. So that's what I think, and that's, unfortunately, I think, is just skipped over in school. I think largely because how could they? They don't have the capacity to do that. So they focus on what they can do, which is memorizing. And I think school is probably doing less and less of that, because I think school kind of recognizes too that it's what are they going to, what are they going to teach? The kids aren't going to memorize everything. So what are they going to focus on? Maybe your times tables. You need to know how to write and read. You need to know how basic math, and then I think you need to develop yourself. You need to know what's your passion in life and how to find that. Nobody ever asked me, what are you passionate about? Nobody ever asked me that, not once. That's tragedy. So ask your kids that.
Good question. Are you going to go over how to come peacefully and gently out of meditation?
I will, if you like.
Well, I tend to sink in pretty deeply.
Okay.
And I find it scary when I come back.
Okay.
It's jolting.
Okay.
And frightening. I guess I don't want to come out of meditation, maybe.
Okay.
But there's a lot going on, and I'm just there.
Okay.
So.
How long do you sit normally?
20 minutes usually.
Is that according to how you've been taught, is to sit for 20 minutes, or is that just what you?
It seems to be what fits.
Okay.
What works.
Okay.
And there's always a sense of surprise when I hear my bell, or the teacher saying, okay. They're saying it gently.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means for me.
Okay. To me, that's a sign that you're ready for longer meditation sittings.
Oh, okay.
I would take it like that. In my tradition, an hour is considered a normal amount of time to sit. And I know when meditation practice, one of the first forms that came to the U.S. was transcendental meditation. That's probably a whole generation ahead of you guys. But if you talk to older people, they think of meditation as TM because it came to the U.S. in a big way. And that was 20 minutes. You never sit for more than 20 minutes. So in the Theravada Buddhist tradition, you sit until you're done. So ideally, you don't have a bell.
That'd be wonderful.
And what keeps you from doing that? Is there a limitation?
Well, if I'm in class, it's just class.
Yoga class, okay, yeah.
Time is usually.
Yeah.
Just, that's what I've allotted.
Okay. Well, the first thing I would do is encourage you to try to open that up for yourself. If you've never sat with no time limit, especially describing what you're describing, I would highly recommend that, because usually meditation can have a really organic flow to it, and what's lovely is if you have the luxury to sit without a bell, with an open time ahead of you, you'll find that each time is different. Sometimes I'll sit and 20 minutes I'm done, and I know I'm done. And other times I'll sit and an hour has gone by and I'm not done yet. So that's a lovely way to do it, because then you're really in the moment and you're tuning into what's true for you. And in what you're describing, I would really try that. For a lot of us, the mind is always ready to get up. You know, for most of us that aren't experiencing what she's experiencing, you know, the mind wants to get up after a minute. It wants to get up after 2 minutes. So there's a discipline there of, no, I'm going to stick with 20 minutes. And that's probably why you got that idea, because for most of us, we need that. But if you're getting absorbed like that, then I would try to cut out a big chunk of time for yourself and see what that feels like, and let it unfold organically. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Can you speak more about letting the body take care of itself? Because what happens if you're sitting and your foot falls asleep or something?
Good question. So the question is, letting the body take care of itself. What happens if your foot falls asleep? Knee pain, back pain. How do you do that? So limbs falling asleep, feet, legs falling asleep. Some people just let it happen, and then, it takes you a couple minutes to be able to walk when you come out of practice. I'm not sure that's so good for the body. If I feel my leg falling asleep, for me, it's usually just a matter of a slight shift, because I'm pinching a nerve or whatever it is physiologically that makes that happen. So I recommend, if you're feeling a limb go to sleep, that you shift a little. And in the beginning, if you're trying to sit cross-legged like this on the floor, that's one of the most first things that will happen, is that your leg or foot will go to sleep. And after a while, that will stop. That's how it's been for me. So it rarely happens for me now. When it comes to more intense pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, back pain, what we recommend in this tradition is that before you move your body, before you take care of it on a physical level, that you explore it with awareness, which simply means notice what the sensation feels like. And this is hard to do with pain, because our reaction to pain is, I want it to go away. And if you notice, your almost instinctive reaction to pain is to tighten around it. What we instinctively do with pain is exclude it, isolate it, exclude it, and try to get rid of it. And it turns out that what that does is prolong the pain. It's the same thing we do with mental suffering. We have some kind of painful experience in our life, and all we want to do is we react to it. We get angry about it, we get resentful, and we try to push it away, and all that effort that we put into it prolongs the pain. It actually makes the pain worse. So you can experiment with that on a physical level. It's easier to do it with the body than it is with the mind, with mental pain. When you get a pain in your knee, let's say, first just be curious, what does this feel like? Meaning, what's the moment-to-moment sensation? Is it sharp, repeated stabbing? Is it burning? Is it throbbing? I don't mean to get masochistic here, but you're not adding to the pain. You're not making it more painful. You're just noticing, what is this sensation that I'm calling pain? And one of the things you'll notice is that in your mind you've figured out, you've configured it as, this is permanent, this is never going away, I got to get rid of it. And in fact, pain is moving. It's always moving. The sensations in the body are always changing, even if it's subtle and slight. So you start to notice that. It's a moving sensation. It's not permanent. It's not fixed. And that will give you a different relationship to it. And then the first action is to soften rather than harden. So you put your awareness on your knee, and you see what it's like to relax the knee, relax the muscles around the knee, which is hard to do at first, because all of our conditioning is get rid of it, push it away. So in that sense, you can use your yoga practice. It's exactly what I understand the essence of yoga is to put yourself in a stretch pose where you're at an edge for yourself, and then relax into that edge. So it's exactly that. See if you can relax into the pain. Go ahead.
What you're describing to me still feels like you're taking care of the body.
Okay. The difference between what I'm describing and taking care of the body is that the normal way of taking care of the body is move, change.
Okay.
You know, you think about if you're not meditating and not doing yoga and your body's uncomfortable, you change it, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what ends up happening is that we do that all the time so continuously that we can't sit still. And it's only that sitting still is a necessary ingredient to stilling the mind. If your body's moving, it's very hard to quiet the mind. So we're just starting with the physical form and trying to quiet the physical form so that we can finally really pay full attention to what's going on mentally. And that's the only reason to quiet the body. Plus, it's a great thing to know how to do. You know, once you can still your body, you realize standing in line waiting isn't such a big deal. Sitting for long periods isn't such a big deal. That, you know, for me growing up, those things were excruciating. I hated sitting still. I hated waiting for anything. And after learning meditation, those things became, okay, I can wait. It's okay. So that's what that's the only reason, you know, that we're quieting the body. So.
I get just one more question about that. So if you're acknowledging the pain in your knee, is that in a sense going to let that go, that pain go?
That would be a good question for you to find out. See what it's like to acknowledge it without trying to get rid of it, and then just notice what happens. That's easier said than done, because your habit is get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. And what I'm saying is don't get rid of it. It's just like I asked you not to breathe a few moments ago. See if you can do the same thing with the pain. Just be aware of it, and then ask yourself what happens next. And that may take a little practice to be able to be that aware. But it's well worth it because it will change your relationship to your body. Yeah. A lot of people think of sitting, somehow in the Buddhist tradition particularly, it's gotten translated into denying the body or not taking care of the body. And that's not at all what it's about. It's really about coming fully into the body and realizing that the body can take care of itself. It has this amazing capacity to take care of itself. And that pain in the knee doesn't mean that it's permanent. In fact, it changes. So. Let's, we're going to run out of time here if I don't stop and do something different. So let's try sitting. I'll just say a few words about posture. So I'm doing the traditional classic cross-legged. If you notice, I've got a fairly sizable cushion under my butt, and I think that's useful. Everyone has to find their own style with this, but I think it's nice to be a little bit higher up on the butt. And I'll just show you a couple other variations. This is called a sitting bench. This is a deluxe one with a thick pad on it. You can get plain wooden ones. If you sit on a plain wooden one, it's nice to put something on there. And this is how they work. Okay, and this one is sweet because it's got a curved leg, so you can set the angle, any angle that you like. We've got others in that closet. You're welcome to play around with them while you're here. And a lot of them have a flat, just a set angle to them. So if you're shopping for one, that's something to look for if you're trying them out. The angled part is you're trying to get a posture where and what you'll notice about this is that it's really nice on the knees and the ankles. There's not as much weight on your knees and ankles. It's put different stresses on the back, so you just have to feel out whether this might work for you. But the idea is, what this does organically is it tips your pelvis forward. And when your pelvis is tipped forward, your belly sticks out. You've got a curve forward in your lower spine, and it allows your breath to go naturally all the way down into the lower diaphragm. So this is a good posture to mimic, no matter how you do it, is to get your pelvis a little bit tipped forward like this. Your shoulders drop back, your chest open. So that's what I generally try to get people to do in any posture that they're in. And this bench just does it automatically. Another variation on this, and we don't have them here today, but some of you may know what I think they're called computer chairs now. But they used to be called back chairs, and they look weird. They have a seat here and a pad here for your knee, and they're about up this high. So they do this exact same thing, but you're sitting up at chair height. And a lot of people that have trouble with this or with this find those computer chairs really nice for meditation. So, and then another variation, I see you doing it. You can kind of mimic the bench thing by taking a rounder cushion. Some people do this with a yoga mat rolled up, and just put it between your legs like this. So that does a similar thing to the bench. It's a little bit lower to the ground, and it again takes some of the weight off your knees and your ankles. And then if you're trying the cross-legged, I do what's I think traditionally called the half lotus, just one leg over the other. Some people do the full lotus, the leg under. Some people do I think what's called the Native American, where you're just both legs. So whatever you can manage. There isn't a right or wrong way to do it. And you can do whatever you like with your hands. The most common things are put them on your knees or fold them in your lap. You're just trying to find a place where you can let your hands and arms totally relax. Lately I've been liking to have something to rest my hands on, so a blanket or a cushion in your lap might be useful. So any questions about the physical part? So what I'll do is spend a few minutes. We'll do, the other thing is I'm going to start you out with your eyes closed. I think it's helpful to close your eyes in the beginning. If that feels uncomfortable at any point, you feel dizzy or sleepy, or you just would rather have your eyes open, just feel free to open your eyes, and the idea is just to kind of glance at the floor in front of you, so you're not taking in information. And so what I'll do is guide us through a body relaxation, and then we'll end up focusing on the breath in the belly, and I should have a bell. And then we'll sit probably just for 5 or 10 minutes, and there'll be a little time at the end for people to ask questions. Just closing your eyes and feeling your body for a moment. Take a deep breath and relax your chest, your shoulders. And just come into the body as it is now. So, not trying to do anything. Feel your feet, your legs touching the floor, your butt against the cushion. And see if you can let your body relax and open. So notice any places where you're holding or you're tight, and just soften. Open. Imagine now that there's a large balloon filled with helium gas. It's floating above your head. And there's a string tied to the balloon attached to the very crown of your head. So it's gently pulling upward on your body. So you feel your head, your neck, and your spine slightly stretched upward, and your upper body is weightless. You're being suspended by that string and balloon. And then letting the balloon and the string hold your weight will begin to relax the body, the muscles. As I mention a body part, you might move it to make sure you're not holding. So softening the face, around the eyes, the cheeks, the jaw. Just letting your face go. Letting the head rest on the neck, and the neck just resting on the shoulders. And lifting your shoulders up for a moment, and then dropping them down, shake them out a little, and let go of any weight you're carrying this morning. Anything that's weighing on you, simply let it slide off your shoulders. Setting it down. And then relaxing your arms from your shoulders down to your fingertips. Letting the hands be soft, the arms limp, the fingers loose. And coming back to your torso, your upper body, imagine your spine as the trunk of a young sapling tree. So it's upright, it's firm, but it's also flexible, it's alive. And let the spine carry the weight of your upper body. So relaxing the muscles, letting the spine do the work. Your chest open, your shoulders back. And bring attention now down to your belly. Take a deep breath, fill up the belly, and then let the belly go. Let the belly go soft. See if you can completely relax the belly and just let it hang. Then bring attention to your hips, your pelvis, and tip your pelvis slightly forward. So you're sitting up on the edge of your sits bones. Your belly sticks out a little. You can feel a curve in your lower spine. And the breath goes all the way down to the lower diaphragm. And then just let your buttocks sink into the cushion, the bench. Feel your weight against the floor and against the earth below us. And notice how you're being supported from below. You're sitting on solid ground, solid floor, solid earth. And you can relax into that. Let yourself be supported. You don't have to grip or hold on with your legs. So bringing awareness to the legs for a moment. And if there's any tight pinching places, just adjust the legs slightly. And then let the legs go limp. Let them just relax. So feeling your leg muscles from your hips down to your toes and letting go of any tension. Again, letting the floor hold your weight. And imagine from all the points of contact with the floor, with the earth below us, your buttocks, your legs, your feet, roots growing down into the earth. So you're grounded, you're rooted, you're connected to the earth. Secure, stable. And then imagine out of those roots your torso growing up, your spine, your head reaching up toward the sun. Imagine your body like a plant. Your spine is the stem and your head is the flower. Stretching upward, trying to get more sunshine. And then just let your body be still. Let your body go. And let the body take care of itself. Bring your attention for a moment to sound, to hearing. And just hearing sound as vibration, coming and going, getting louder, getting softer. Just hearing. Now bring your awareness to your belly and notice the sensation of the belly rising slightly with the in-breath and falling down with the out-breath. So letting the body breathe in its own rhythm. And noticing the simple sensations in the belly, the skin, the muscles, stretching, expanding, and then collapsing. So just staying with one breath at a time, all the way in, the belly rising, all the way out, the belly falling. Keeping the body relaxed, letting the breath flow naturally. Belly rising, belly falling. Just keep your focus on your breathing, and when you notice your mind off in a thought, simply notice that you're thinking. See if you can interrupt the thought, let it go, and come back to the breath. So, what happened? One question I like to ask is, can you feel the breath in the belly? Is anybody not able to feel the belly moving with the breath? Good. The more you focus on that spot, the more the sensation will become clear and obvious. And you can notice details like the beginning of the breath, the belly just starting to rise, and the fullness of the belly, and then the belly going back down again. So, and if for some reason you're not feeling it in the belly, there's nothing essential about that spot. So you can find any other place in the body where you can feel the breath. The thing is to stick with one spot so it becomes more clear, the breathing. So. And how about the body? How about body pain? Anybody had an experience with painful sensation? And how was that?
What you talked about answering Irene's question was very helpful.
Okay.
It's been always a challenge for me.
Okay. So it's helpful to just put your awareness there and soften it, okay? A great way to begin to relate to the body is softening around pain. It's a really good habit, and we have to work at it a little bit in the beginning. Yeah. And how about the mind? So hopefully you notice your mind doing its thing. And a lot of people think in the beginning of meditation, oh, I can't do this. It's not possible. And my mind is too out of control, and I'm not going to be able to do it. Just the fact that you're noticing that about your mind is meditation. You're becoming aware of what your mind is doing, because normally the mind is doing that and we're not paying attention to it. And in fact, we're trying to just ignore it or do other things while our mind is doing that. In meditation, the very first stage is just noticing what your mind is doing. Then to be able to come back to the breath gives you a reference. So all we're doing is giving ourselves a reference point so that we can become more aware of the actual goings-on of our mind without getting caught in the content. So that's the challenge, is to not get caught up in the story in your mind, but to notice, oh, I'm thinking. And the more you notice your mind thinking, the more you get perspective on it. So it doesn't dominate your experience. It doesn't control you. You get a little more choice about where you put your attention. So.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
This has been great instruction about, the posture, the sitting, the focus, how to drop in. But I'm still thinking about Kelly's question more. How do you bring yourself back out? Are there techniques? Is there a way? Is there some focus to bring yourself back out?
Sure. Gently. If you're noticing that transition from sitting to coming out is difficult, to me that's a really good sign that you're going in, and you're going deeply in. And the more you notice that sensitivity, the more it's important to be really gentle. And so if you're in yoga class, don't just jump up and start talking to people. It may look strange, but stay with yourself. Stay on your mat. If you stay in your little energy, people aren't going to come up and crowd you. But if you get up and start being social, that may be too much for you. So the first thing I do is I usually go like this. I really connect with the earth and the floor, and it's a nice stretch for my lower back. and if you're in a Buddhist context, they think you're bowing to the Buddha, so it works really well. And maybe you are bowing to the Buddha. But you can really just stay in your body. That's the thing that disorients us, is when we come out of the body. So stay with your body. Stay with what's going on in the body. You don't have to leave your body just because you're coming out of meditation practice. And in fact, that's the art of meditation, is staying in your body all the time. And isn't that the point of yoga as well? Is to get into the body and really be with the body. So when you're coming out of practice, meditation, you're moving the body. So it's a different experience, and you may be starting to have visual contact and verbal contact. But keep coming back to the body, come back to your breath, come back to the belly, and use that as kind of a center point, a grounding point. And if you need to, come out slowly. Stay sitting. Some people like to lie down after meditation. If you have the space and the room to do that, stay with your body.
It seems like getting comfortable sitting like this takes so long for a lot of people, or maybe it's kind of out of their imagination.
Yep.
So, I haven't heard you say anything like magical about this sitting position, so, I hear don't lie down because you might fall asleep, but that seems easier not to fall asleep than to get comfortable here.
Okay.
So, just talk about other positions.
Sure. The
The
one thing I didn't mention is sitting in a chair, and we're all more used to sitting in a chair than we are used to sitting like this, and there's nothing wrong with sitting in a chair. If you sit in a chair, I recommend that you sit forward on the edge of the chair so you're not leaning back. The only rule that I have for sitting is don't lean back. So that's why I don't let people sit in back jacks or rocking chairs. But maybe that's what works for you. It's not worth, if you can't get the body to settle, and you're just struggling, then try something else. Sit in a chair, be relaxed. You could try lying down. There's nothing right or wrong about it. The main thing, if you're struggling to get the body to settle, I recommend doing a longer meditation retreat where you're sitting continuously. Sitting and walking is how we do it throughout the day. You alternate sitting and walking, and by the end of a day or 2 days or 3 days, your body will finally surrender. But meanwhile, find what works for you, and there's no rules. This is a do-it-yourself kind of thing. So if lying down works for you, if sitting back works for you, do it. Try it out. Is that? Yeah. How are you doing? Okay. Yeah. The only word I can say about coming out is take care of yourself. And that's really the essence of practice is...
I do. I have to just stay in I always call my mat my sacred space.
There you go.
So I'm here because the outside stimulation of people and things, it's too much.
Yeah. So draw your circle and stay in your circle as long as you need to. Yeah. Yeah.
And if I go slowly, then I don't find that, I lose that in life. So, usually the first thing I notice is my body. And it's saying, ow. Yes. So I give it attention.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, I do have a body again.
Yeah.
And then I just treat it gently. And then I just slowly open up to reality in the present moment.
Yeah. Good. Any other questions before we close? Okay. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.